Hello Year 6, I hope you're all okay. Thank you for joining me for another reading lesson. Coming up in today's lesson, there will be a chance to enter the Kahoot quiz in reading this week. You will need a phone, a tablet or a laptop or computer on which to access the internet for this later on. But you can listen to the lesson now and complete that later if you would like. Otherwise, you just need something to write with. Today's reading lesson will focus on the same learning objective again that we've been looking at so far, to retrieve and record information. So your starter task today is to have a go at summarising what has happened so far in Stormbreaker Chapter 1 in 2 sentences or less. Pause the video and have a go. Wonder how you got on. This is what I came up with. Alex Ryder's uncle, Ian Ryder, has been killed in a suspicious car accident. The theft of Ian's paperwork and the attendance of some shady colleagues at Ian's funeral has left Alex asking questions about who his uncle really was and how he died. It was quite hard to fit all of those key details into 2 sentences. I wonder how you got on. Before I read the next part of the story to you, you're going to need some key vocabulary to help you understand the story a bit more. So, word number 1 is comprehensive, which is used as a noun in this story, meaning a school that anybody can go to, rather than a private school where you would pay to go, a school that anybody can go to. Number 2 is collision, another noun which means a crash. Number 3 is yellow pages, another noun which is a telephone directory printed on yellow paper. Have a look at the pictures. That people would use to look up the name and telephone number of a local business or company, and it's organised in categories. So you'd look up garden centres, for example, if you were looking for one, and you'd find all of the local garden centres in one place and choose which one you want to call. They don't actually make them anymore. The last ones were printed in 2019 because now we can just Google. Okay, there is a Year 5-6 tricky word in the text today, secretary, which is a person who works in an office and who makes appointments or writes letters and emails. So make sure you have practice saying secretary and understand what it means. Our second word we're going to look at is recognised. Can you work out the root word in the word? Well done if you spotted it was recognise, which is a verb. So the ed suffix makes it a past tense verb, recognised. This is an unusual spelling. It's got a Z, which is the American spelling. Sometimes you'll see it with an S, which is the British spelling. But recognised means that something is known or seen before. And the last word we're going to look out for is wreckage. Have a think, can you spot a spelling rule in this word? Well done if you spotted that it's got a silent letter, which we've been focusing on spellings last week. The silent letter is W. And a wreckage means the remains of something that has been damaged or destroyed. So look out for those words today, practice saying them, make sure you understand what they mean. So today we're going to practice our retrieve skill again that we've been practicing, where we look for clues in the text using skimming and scanning and answer questions about it. So I'm going to read you the first page of chapter 2 and then we'll have a go at a question together. So the chapter's called Heaven for Cars. With Hammersmith Bridge just ahead of him, Alex left the river and swung his bike through the lights and down the hill towards Brooklyn School. The bike was a Condor Junior road racer, custom built for him on his 12th birthday. It was a teenager's bike with a cut-down Reynolds 531 frame, but the wheels were full-sized so he could ride at speed with hardly any rolling resistance. He spun past a Mini and cut through the school gates. He would be sorry when he grew out of the bike. For 2 years now, it had almost been part of him. He double-locked it in the shed and went into the yard. Brooklyn was a new comprehensive, red brick and glass, modern and ugly. Remember, a comprehensive is a school that anybody could go to. Alex could have gone to any of the smart private schools around Chelsea, but Ian Ryder had decided to send him here. He said it would be more of a challenge. Okay, so let's have a look at our first retrieval question. It says, choose the correct option to complete the sentence below. The text begins with Alex riding his bike, A, across the bridge, B, slowly, C, around Chelsea, or D, towards his school. Now, when I'm looking for answers in the text, I need to be skimming and scanning, thinking about all of the answer options and making sure I know exactly which one is correct. So the text begins with Alex riding his bike across the bridge. This is a trick question. I can see the word bridge here, but if I read the next sentence, the next part of the sentence, it said that Alex left the river and swung his bike through the lights and down the hill. So he didn't go across the bridge. That was a trick question. Okay, B, let's have a look and think about this option then. He begins with riding his bike slowly. Now I can see, looking at some of the vocabulary, here he swung his bike through the lights and later on he spun past a Mini. Those words tell me he's riding his bike very fast, so that's not a good option to choose. C, let's have a look at that option, around Chelsea. I can skim and scan for the capital letter. That's going to help me find Chelsea very quickly, looking for a proper noun. Chelsea's here, look. Okay, it's mentioned that he could have gone to any of the smart private schools around Chelsea, but if I actually think about what the text is saying, it's saying his school wasn't in Chelsea, it was Brooklands School, rather than being a private school in Chelsea. So that's not really a good option either. D, towards his school. Now it does mention his school here. We know that Brookland is his school, and we can see that Alex left the river and swung his bike through the lights and down the hill towards Brookland School, which we can later on see is confirmed it is Alex's school here. So that's got to be the best option. Okay, so I would go with D, towards his school. So top tips then, skimming and scanning, looking for keywords and checking all of the options. Make sure you don't just jump to the quick first one you think, oh, that's the answer. Really think about it, find the evidence in the text to help you answer those retrieval questions. Okay, let's move on to the next page. The first lesson of the day was maths. When Alex came into the classroom, the teacher, Mr. Donovan, was already chalking up a complicated equation on the board. It was hot in the room, the sunlight streaming in through the floor-to-ceiling windows put in by architects who should have known better. As Alex took his place near the back, he wondered how he was going to get through the lesson. How could he possibly think about algebra when there were so many other questions churning through his mind? The gun at the funeral, the way Blunt had looked at him, the van with Stryker and Son written on the side, the empty office, and, the biggest question of all, the one detail that refused to go away, the seat belt. Ian Ryder hadn't been wearing a seat belt. But of course he had. Ian Ryder had never been one to give lectures. He had always said Alex should make up his own mind about things, but he'd had this thing about seat belts. The more Alex thought about it, the less he believed it. A collision at a roundabout. Remember, a collision means crash. Suddenly, he wished he could see the car. At least the wreckage would tell him that the accident had really happened, that Ian Ryder really had died that way. Oh, I wonder if he's going to go and see if he can find the wreckage of the car. Remember, wreckage means the remains of something damaged, so what's left of the car. Okay, let's have a look at a question. You can have a think about this one yourself. It says again, same style of question, choose the correct option to complete the sentence below. Alex could not concentrate at school because A, it was too hot, B, he was distracted, C, he was upset, D, he found maths hard. Pause the video and have a think. Welcome back. I went for B, he was distracted, because I thought about all of the different options and I decided that he couldn't concentrate because he was distracted. This part here was important. He had so many questions churning through his mind, and I found out that yes, it was hot, that was mentioned, but it wasn't really to do with why he was distracted. It doesn't really mention about him being upset, and it doesn't mention anything about him finding maths hard. So he was distracted by the questions and what he was thinking about. Alex looked up and realised that everyone was staring at him. Mr. Donovan had just asked him something. He quickly scanned the blackboard, taking in the figures. Yes, sir, he said. X equals 7 and Y is 15. The maths teacher sighed. Yes, Alex, you're absolutely right. But actually, I was just asking you to open the window. Somehow he managed to get through the rest of the day. But by the time the final bell rang, his mind was made up. While everyone else streamed out, he made his way to the secretary's office and borrowed a copy of Yellow Pages. So the secretary's office, the person who answers emails, writes letters, makes appointments, things like that. And he borrowed a copy of the Yellow Pages, that book. He was looking for some telephone number. What are you looking for? The secretary asked. Jane Bedfordshire was a young woman in her 20s, and she'd always had a soft spot for Alex. Breakers' yards. Alex flicked through the pages. If a car got smashed up near Old Street, they'd take it somewhere nearby, wouldn't they? I suppose so. Here, Alex had found the yards listed under car dismantlers, but there were dozens of them fighting for attention over 4 pages. Okay, let's have a look at the question and you can have a go. Choose the correct option to complete the sentence below. Jane Bedfordshire, A, was Alex's secretary. B, did not like Alex. C, was Alex's maths teacher. D, was the school secretary. Pause the video. Have a go. Welcome back. Okay, so another one where we had to kind of think about it a little bit and find the evidence. The answer was D, the school secretary. She wasn't Alex's secretary, she worked at the school. We can see that she did like Alex. It says here that she had a soft spot for Alex, and she wasn't Alex's maths teacher at all. That was Mr. Donovan. Well done if you got that one right. Is this for a school project? The secretary asked. She knew Alex had lost a relative, but not how. Sort of. Alex was reading the addresses, but they told him nothing. This one's quite near Old Street. Miss Bedfordshire pointed at the corner of the page. Wait. Alex tugged the book towards him and looked at the entry underneath the one the secretary had chosen. J.B. Stryker. Heaven for cars. J.B. Stryker. Auto breakers. Lambeth Walk, London. Telephone number 0207 123 5392. Call us today. That's in Vauxhall, Miss Bedfordshire said. Not too far from here. I know, but Alex had recognised the name. That means he'd seen it before somewhere. J.B. Stryker. He thought back to the van he had seen outside his house on the day of the funeral. Stryker and Son. Of course, it might just be a coincidence, but it was still somewhere to start. He closed the book. I'll see you, Miss Bedfordshire. Be careful how you go. The secretary watched Alex leave, wondering why she had said that. Maybe it was his eyes, dark and serious. There was something dangerous there. Then the telephone rang and she forgot him as she went back to work. Okay, so have a think about this question. J.B. Stryker is A, the name of a street. B, sounded familiar to Alex. C, is in Kidderminster. D, was a friend of Alex. And see if you can find the evidence in the text to prove that your answer is correct. Have a go. Welcome back. Okay, the correct answer was, of course, B. J.B. Stryker sounded familiar to Alex. Okay, he recognised the name because he'd seen it on the van by his house. So well done if you got that one right. Okay, so today for your chili challenge, I have set you a Kahoot quiz. So you can play this on a phone, a tablet, a computer. If you go to this website here, just type it into your browser, kahoot.it. Then it will ask you to enter a game pin. You put in this number here. Then it will ask you to enter your first name, your surname. Oh, it will ask you to enter a name. Can you put in your first name, your surname initial and class, for example, Alex R in 6S, to play and see if you can make it to the top 10 on the leaderboard. The quiz will be live until 10 a.m. on Wednesday the 13th of January. So you need to get on and have a go if you want to make it onto the leaderboard. The questions start off fairly easily with some Chili 1 questions and get a little bit harder as you go through. But it's a good way of checking your understanding. What details did you pick up on and what can you remember from Stormbreaker so far? Good luck, hope you enjoy it.